The blind date was empty until a little girl walked in and said, "My mommy's sorry she's late." Sarah Mitchell checked her phone for the 7th time in 15 minutes. The coffee in front of her had gone from steaming to lukewarm, mirroring the hope that was slowly draining from her chest. She'd been single for 3 years, 3 long years of putting her career first, of telling herself she was fine alone, of ignoring the ache that crept in during quiet Sunday mornings. When her best friend Emma had insisted on setting her up with the perfect guy, Sarah had finally, reluctantly agreed. Now, sitting in this bustling downtown cafe on a Friday evening, watching couples laugh over shared desserts and friends clink glasses in celebration, she felt like the universe's punchline. The rejection stung worse because she'd tried. She'd bought a new dress, nothing too fancy, just a simple navy blue number that made her feel confident. She'd even splurged on a manicure, her first in months. At 34, Sarah knew she shouldn't need validation from a stranger. But some small part of her had hoped that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. She glanced at the empty chair across from her and made a decision. 5 more minutes. If he didn't show by then, she'd leave with whatever dignity she had left, go home, change into her pajamas, and pretend this evening never happened. 4 minutes passed. Sarah was gathering her purse, preparing her exit strategy, when she heard a small voice beside her table. "Excuse me, are you Sarah?" She looked down to find a little girl no more than 6 years old, standing nervously at the edge of her table. The child had dark curls pulled into 2 lopsided pigtails, and she wore a pink jacket with a small backpack shaped like a ladybug. Her brown eyes were wide with worry, and she clutched a folded piece of paper in her small hands. "Yes, I'm Sarah," she said, confused but softening immediately. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" The little girl shook her head quickly. "My mommy's sorry she's late. She said to give you this and tell you she'll be here really, really soon. She made me promise." Sarah took the note, her mind racing through possibilities. Wrong person? Some kind of mistake? But the child had known her name. She unfolded the paper, and her confusion only deepened. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic. "Sarah, I'm so sorry." "Emergency at the hospital. My daughter Lily will explain. Please don't leave. I promise I'm coming. Marcus." "Marcus?" Sarah said aloud, looking at the little girl, Lily. "But I thought I was supposed to meet someone named David." Lily climbed into the chair across from Sarah, her feet dangling well above the floor. "My daddy's name is Marcus." "Who's David?" The puzzle pieces weren't fitting together. Sarah pulled out her phone and scrolled to the messages from Emma. David Chen, Rive architect, loves dogs and hiking. There was nothing about a Marcus, nothing about a daughter. "Lily, honey, I think there might be a mistake." "Where's your mommy?" "Shouldn't you be with her?" "Mommy's at the hospital. She's a doctor. A nurse called and said someone was really sick, so she had to go help them. Daddy was supposed to meet you, but he's stuck in traffic because of an accident. So Mommy asked our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, to bring me here, to tell you not to leave." The words tumbled out in a rush, and Lily's eyes grew shinier with each sentence. "Please don't leave. Mommy said it's really, really important." Sarah's confusion was now mixed with concern. What kind of situation was this? A 6-year-old messenger for a blind date that wasn't even hers? But looking at Lily's worried face, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. "Okay, I'll stay a little longer," Sarah said gently. "But where's Mrs. Peterson?" "She's outside. She said she'd wait to make sure you were here." Sarah spotted an elderly woman through the window, giving her an encouraging thumbs up before walking away. This was officially the strangest evening of her life. "Are you hungry, Lily? Have you had dinner?" The little girl nodded, but then, in the honest way only children can manage, added, "But I could have dessert." Despite everything, Sarah smiled. "How about some hot chocolate and a cookie while we wait?" Lily's face lit up and Sarah flagged down a server. As they waited for the order, Lily began chattering, the nervous energy flowing out in a stream of 6-year-old consciousness. She told Sarah about her first-grade teacher, Mrs. Anderson, who let them have class outside when it was sunny. She talked about her goldfish named Sparkle, who knew how to swim in circles on command. She described her favorite show, her best friend Sophie, and how she wanted to be both a veterinarian and a ballerina when she grew up. Sarah found herself genuinely enchanted. She'd never spent much time with children, always too focused on her career at the nonprofit where she worked, managing community development projects. But Lily's unfiltered joy was infectious. "My mommy says you're very special," Lily said suddenly, taking a sip of her hot chocolate and leaving a whipped cream mustache on her upper lip. "Special? Honey, your mommy doesn't even know me." "Yes, she does. She talks about you all the time. She says you're the kind of person who changes the world, even when nobody's watching." Sarah froze. Those words struck something deep in her chest. Nobody had ever described her that way. How could this woman, this mysterious Marcus, know anything about her? "Lily, are you absolutely sure your mommy meant me?" "Sarah Mitchell?" "Yep. She showed me your picture from the newspaper. The one where you're standing in front of that new building for the homeless people, the community center." Sarah had spent 2 years fighting for funding, navigating bureaucracy, and rallying support to build a resource center for the city's homeless population. There had been a small article when it opened 6 months ago, complete with a photo she'd thought looked terrible. Before she could process this revelation, Lily continued. "Mommy cried when she read that article. She said you were her hero because you did what she couldn't do." "What do you mean?" "Mommy's brother, my Uncle James, he died on the street. Mommy said nobody helped him, and she couldn't find him in time. She said if there had been a place like yours, maybe he'd still be alive." Sarah's throat tightened. She'd heard hundreds of stories from the people who used the center, but somehow this one, told in a child's innocent voice, hit differently. "I'm so sorry about your uncle," Sarah managed. Lily nodded solemnly. "I never met him, but Mommy says he was really funny. She keeps his picture on her desk." 20 minutes passed, then 30. Sarah had long forgotten about David, about the blind date that wasn't. She was fully invested in this strange encounter, in this little girl who seemed wise beyond her years. Then Lily said something that changed everything. "Mommy's been planning this for 3 months. She said she was too scared to meet you, that you'd think she was weird for wanting to say thank you to someone she didn't know. But Daddy said brave people sometimes need help too, and that everyone deserves to know when they've made a difference." The pieces finally clicked. This wasn't a blind date. This was something else entirely, something Emma must have orchestrated without telling her the full truth. Before Sarah could respond, a woman burst through the cafe door, still wearing scrubs under a hastily thrown-on jacket. She was beautiful in an exhausted way, her hair pulled back messily, her face flushed from running. "Lily!" she called out, then spotted them. "Oh, thank God." She rushed over, immediately dropping to her knees beside Lily's chair. "Baby, I'm so sorry. The emergency took longer than I thought. Were you okay?" "I was great, Mommy." Sarah stayed with me, and we had hot chocolate and cookies. And I told her about Sparkle and Uncle James, and— "You told her about James?" "The woman, Marcus," Sarah presumed, though she was clearly not the Marcus she'd expected, looked up at Sarah with tears in her eyes. "I'm Sarah Mitchell," Sarah said softly, "and I think I've been spectacularly confused this entire evening." Marcus stood, helping Lily down from her chair. "My name is actually Marcia, but everyone calls me Marco or Marcus. I'm so sorry for the deception. Emma helped me set this up, but then everything went wrong today. I'm a trauma surgeon, and we had a multi-vehicle accident come in right when I was supposed to leave. My husband Daniel was coming from his job site, but he hit the same traffic from the accident. And," she was speaking too fast, words tripping over each other, "I just wanted to thank you in person for what you did with the center, for what you're doing for people like my brother." Sarah stood too, moving around the table. Without thinking, she pulled Marcia into a hug. The other woman stiffened for a moment, then collapsed into the embrace, months or maybe years of grief and gratitude pouring out. "You don't need to thank me," Sarah whispered. "I'm just glad it exists. I'm glad it might help someone." They stayed like that for a long moment, two strangers connected by loss and hope, while Lily watched with the solemn understanding that some adult moments required quiet. When they finally pulled apart, both women were crying. Marcia laughed wetly and wiped her eyes. "This is not how I planned this. I was going to be eloquent and composed and say something meaningful about how your work saved my faith in humanity." "I think your daughter already said it better," Sarah replied, smiling at Lily. The evening didn't end there. Daniel eventually arrived, a kind-faced man with paint still on his work. Boots, who apologized, profusely while also clearly being proud of his wife's bold gesture. They insisted on buying Sarah dinner, and what followed was one of the most genuine conversations Sarah had experienced in years. They talked about loss and purpose, about the small ways people could make differences, about the importance of showing up even when it was scary. As Sarah finally left the cafe that night, her phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "So, how was the date with David?" Sarah smiled and typed back. "David never showed. But I think I just had the most important date of my life anyway. Thank you for lying to me." 3 dots appeared, then, "You're welcome." Sometimes blind dates aren't about romance. Sometimes they're about reminding people why they matter. Walking to her car, Sarah thought about all the times she'd felt invisible. All the moments she'd wondered if her work made any real difference. She thought about Lily's small hand in hers, about Marcia's tears, about a brother she'd never met who had died alone on the street. The rejection from David didn't sting anymore. In its place was something fuller, warmer, a reminder that human connection came in unexpected forms, that gratitude could look like a 6-year-old messenger with lopsided pigtails, that sometimes the most meaningful encounters were the ones you never saw coming. Sarah had gone to that cafe looking for romance, for someone to fill the empty spaces in her life. Instead, she'd found something more valuable, the confirmation that her work mattered, that her choices rippled outward in ways she couldn't always see, and that kindness, both given and received, was the most powerful force in the world. Sometimes the blind date was empty not because you'd been stood up, but because you were meant to see something else entirely, something more important, something that reminded you exactly why you showed up in the first place, not just to that cafe, but to life itself, with all its messy, beautiful, unexpected grace.